Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. Today, we're going to be tackling The Love of My Life by Rosie Walsh. This book, it's billed as a love story, but it quickly takes a turn. It goes from a seemingly idyllic romance to a pretty suspenseful mystery.
It really does kind of pull the rug out from under you, doesn't it?
Yeah, it totally does.
You think you're getting this cozy story about, Emma and Leo, this perfect couple, and then all of a sudden you're dealing with these questions about like identity, trust, and can you ever really know the person that you're, closest to?
I know. And how much of a partner's past is need to know versus better left alone?
Yeah.
Is there even such a thing as knowing too much about the person you love?
I mean, that's the real question, isn't it? And it's not even just about romantic relationships, right?
No.
I think Walsh is making us think about the stories that we tell about ourselves to the world and even to people, our loved ones. Do we have a right to kind of rewrite our narratives? Or does the past, inevitably define us?
Well, and it's not like Emma's just keeping some little detail hidden.
Right.
She has constructed a whole other identity. What makes someone go to such, lengths to hide who they really are?
Well, and that's what makes the book so interesting, is that it doesn't paint her motivations as just purely selfish. There's this sense that there's something deeper. She's driven by something, maybe a need for self-preservation.
Mhm.
And Walsh is so smart about it. She kind of reveals Emma's backstory little by little, so you're constantly reevaluating, your judgments about her.
And then there's Leo, right? He's an obituary writer. He spends his days piecing together the lives of strangers.
Oh, the irony.
Right. But the woman he loves, the woman he's built a life with, is a complete, total enigma.
And that's such a key part of the book, right? This irony that he understands everybody else but not his own wife. And it sets up this huge ethical question, doesn't it? Does love, does it mean that you have a right to just know absolutely every single thing about a person, even if it's going to be painful, even if it, completely blows up the life that you've built together? Where do you think the line is between just being curious and respecting someone's right to privacy?
Well, I think it's easy to say, I want to know everything.
Right.
But then when you think about the consequences of that knowledge,
Oh, yeah.
the possibility of broken trust or the weight of knowing these painful secrets, it becomes a lot more complicated. And that's what really got me about the book. It makes you think about those same questions in your own life.
Exactly. Yeah. Walsh isn't just telling a story, is she? It's like she's forcing you to look at your own relationships and think, how much transparency do I expect? How much can I even handle? And how do you even begin to balance honesty with protecting yourself and the people you love?
Yeah. And I think that's where this whole tension between love and truth comes into play. Can love even really last when that foundation of trust is totally shattered? Can Leo forgive Emma for lying to him? Can Emma even forgive herself?
These are questions that stick with you, after you put the book down. And Walsh doesn't make it easy. She doesn't give you any easy answers. She explores forgiveness, in this really complicated way. It's messy. And she really, makes you think about forgiveness in your own life. Like, what are the possibilities and what are the limitations?
And just when you think you're starting to figure things out,
Right.
Walsh throws in a twist. The whole book is full of these twists and turns that have me just gasping out loud. I don't want to spoil anything, but let's just say that you will be constantly trying to figure out what's real and what's not.
Well, and that's the brilliance of it, right? Because it keeps you guessing, but it's not just about, thrills and chills. Right. You're so invested in what's happening to Emma and Leo and trying to figure out, why they make the decisions that they do. And the way that Walsh uses their different points of view, it makes it so much more intense.
You get both sides of the story.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which is, of course, what's actually happening in the book, right?
Yeah.
You see how their perceptions of the same events, of the same memories, are so different.
Yeah.
It makes you realize how even in a relationship where you think you know a person, completely, truth is still subjective.
And that goes back to Emma, building a new identity. It wasn't just about hiding her past, but actually creating this whole new narrative for herself. And then it makes you wonder, can we ever truly escape our past? Or is it always there, no matter what, shaping who we are?
And that's a question that applies to all of us, not just Emma. We all have those moments, those things in our past that we might regret, things we wish we could undo. Do those things define us? Can we ever truly move on?
It's a huge question, especially now, with all the debates about, cancel culture and reinvention. Walsh is tapping into something really real here, this fear that our past have so much power, and can we get a second chance?
And to make it even more complicated, Leo is trying to process all of this while also dealing with Emma being sick.
Oh, yeah.
It's like he's dealing with betrayal and grief at the same time.
It's a double whammy.
He's losing the woman he loves and realizing that the woman he thought he knew never even existed.
And it makes that ethical dilemma we were talking about even more, well, more complex. It's one thing to snoop when things are good, but when your partner's like going through something serious, an illness, does that change things? Where's the line between, wanting the truth and respecting someone's space when the stakes are so high?
And does Emma even have a right to keep her past a secret?
Right.
Even if it means lying to the person she loves? Even if it could have real consequences for them?
It's a tricky one. Some people would say that Emma gets to decide, that it's her life and her story to tell. But then you have to think about the impact on their relationship, on their future. Does love require honesty, even if honesty, hurts?
It's a question so many couples deal with.
Yeah.
Even without, fake identities.
Right.
What do we owe our partners? How do you balance wanting privacy and wanting that closeness and shared history?
And that's what I found so compelling about The Love of My Life. It doesn't shy away from the hard stuff. It forces you to look at how complicated relationships really are and to see those gray areas, the uncertainties, the places where there just aren't any easy answers.
I think it's safe to say that this book, it's intellectually stimulating, but it also just gets you in your feels.
Yeah.
It makes you think and it makes you feel, and it just makes you question everything you thought you knew about love and trust, and even the stories that we tell ourselves and the people we love.
It's not even just the big life-altering things either. The Love of My Life makes you think about those smaller, everyday deceptions.
Yeah.
Like little white lies and those things you just, don't say, even to the people you love the most. Are those harmless, Or do those little things just chip away at the trust in a relationship?
It's like this ripple effect, isn't it? One little secret, then another. And before you know it, you're just, I don't know, you're not being your real self. And I think so many people can relate to that, wanting to show this, I don't know, like a certain version of yourself to the world, even if it's not, totally the truth.
Absolutely, yeah. And this book, it really gets that human desire to, manage how people see you, to control how people see your life. But it shows the consequences too. Those carefully built facades can fall apart and leave you feeling really exposed.
And it's so interesting how Walsh uses the setting to do that too. Like, the book takes place in this beautiful seaside town. It's idyllic, almost. But as the story unfolds, you start to see these, cracks in the picture-perfect surface. All these secrets and lies that are about to, come to light.
It's like the town itself, the setting, is another character in the book.
Yeah.
Reflecting how messed up Emma and Leo are. You have this gorgeous coastline, peaceful harbor, and all that, but then this darkness is creeping into their lives.
It really creates this unsettling feeling, you know? Like something's not right, even though it's this beautiful setting.
Yeah.
Like you're just waiting for the truth to explode.
And that contrast is so effective. It's almost like the setting is a metaphor for how we can put on this perfect face for everyone else when inside we're struggling. And Walsh, she just nails that two-sidedness throughout the book.
We've talked a lot about secrets and lies and ethics, but there is this glimmer of hope in the book, like this possibility of redemption. That even after someone betrays you, you can rebuild trust and love can survive.
Yes. That's one of the things that makes this book so much more than a thriller. It's about second chances and, how strong the human heart can be, even when it's been broken. And Walsh doesn't pretend that it's easy, Rebuilding trust is hard. It takes a lot of work, and you have to be vulnerable and face those painful things from the past.
And it's not even just about Leo forgiving Emma.
No.
Emma has to forgive herself, too. She's carrying around all this guilt and shame. And part of her journey is coming to terms with her past and figuring out how to move on without letting it, control her.
That's such an important message, though, especially today when everyone's so quick to, judge and condemn.
Right.
The Love of My Life reminds us that everyone makes mistakes. And the question is, can we learn from them? Can we actually offer forgiveness to ourselves and to other people?
Can we find a way to move on?
Yeah.
To create a new story for ourselves that includes our past, but also, who we are now.
Exactly.
And that's the challenge for both of them, Emma and Leo. And it's something we can all think about in our own lives.
And it's really amazing how Walsh explores these huge, really complex themes in a way that's still super engaging and easy to follow. You get caught up in the suspense, all the twists and turns, but you're also thinking about these deeper questions about love, forgiveness, And even like, what is truth?
This book, it sticks with you. It makes you think about your own relationships, your own secrets, even how much you can really understand other people.
And it makes you realize that even when things are tough, even when your life feels like it's falling apart, you can still find a way to heal and grow and start over.
Okay, so I want to go back to something we touched on earlier, the symbolism of the sea.
Okay.
It's not just a pretty backdrop, is it? It feels like this powerful force in the book that, I don't know, like it's shaping Emma and Leo's lives.
Definitely. The sea, it's this big symbol. On one level, it's like all of Emma's secrets hidden under the surface, but it's also this huge, like, representation of life, those ever-changing tides that bring good things and bad things.
And there's a sense that it can be both comforting and dangerous at the same time.
Right.
Emma finds comfort in her work as a marine biologist, being in the water. But the sea, it can be unpredictable, like the secrets that are threatening her life.
It's like that duality is reflected in Emma herself. She's drawn to the mystery of the ocean, but she's also scared of it. And you see that in her relationship with Leo, too. Love can be this amazing thing, but it can also bring so much pain.
And then you have the lighthouse. Keeps coming up in the book.
Yeah.
It represents hope.
Yeah.
Right, a steady presence when everything's uncertain.
And it's interesting how Walsh connects the lighthouse to Leo. He's the one trying to find the truth, trying to like navigate all of Emma's deceptions. And the lighthouse, it's like that desire for, clarity, something to guide him out of the dark.
It's almost like it symbolizes how strong love can be. Even when you're dealing with all those lies and secrets, it's this reminder that you can always find your way back to each other, to a safe place, even when things are really tough.
It's a message that I think we all need to hear sometimes. We all go through those rough patches in life, those times when everything feels really uncertain. But the love of my life tells us that even in those really dark times, there's always hope. There's always something guiding us to a better place.
Speaking of navigating choppy waters,
Yeah.
let's talk about Leo's investigation. We've talked about the ethics of it.
Yeah.
But I'm just wondering, how do you feel about the way he goes about it? Digging into her past when she's sick, when it could hurt their relationship.
It's hard to say. I get why he does it. He's desperate to know who his wife really is, especially when she's like slipping away. But he definitely crosses some lines, doesn't he? It becomes obsessive almost to the point where it hurts both of them.
And Walsh does such a good job with those scenes where he's, digging for information. You're right there with him, wanting to know the truth. But you also feel this discomfort, like he's violating Emma's privacy, even though it's because he loves her.
It makes you think, where's the line in your own relationship, Is wanting to know the truth more important than respecting your partner? Like, when does being curious turn into wanting to control someone?
It's something so many couples struggle with. How much should we know about our partner's past? And how do you balance wanting to be open with needing to have boundaries?
And it's so much more complicated here because Emma's past, it's really traumatic.
Yeah.
And she's hiding it to protect herself. It's not about a few embarrassing moments. It's about surviving, protecting herself from judgment, from the pain of what she went through.
Right. And it makes you wonder, can we ever really escape our pasts? Do they always define us? It doesn't matter how far you run. And that's something that comes up over and over in the book, from Emma creating this whole new identity to Leo trying to accept that the woman he thought he knew isn't real.
And it's a question we can all relate to, right? I think we've all done things we wish we could take back. And the love of my life says that those things don't have to control us. We can choose how to move on, create a story for ourselves that includes everything.
And that brings us back to forgiveness, doesn't it?
It always does.
Forgiving yourself and forgiving other people. Can you forgive someone who's hurt you really badly? Can you forgive yourself? And those are the questions that stick with you, even if you finish the book.
They really do. And there aren't easy answers. Forgiveness, it's different for everyone. But I think this book is saying that it's something worth working towards, that forgiveness can help you heal and change.
Okay, so we've talked about all the emotional stuff and the love of my life, but I want to mention something else that I really loved about this book. The way Walsh mixes mystery and suspense with a really moving love story.
Oh, she does that so well. You're trying to solve the mystery of Emma's past while also being completely invested in her and Leo and how much they're struggling.
And that's what makes it more than just a good story. You actually care about these characters, you feel their pain, you're rooting for them, even when they do things that you're like, what are you doing?
And the way she tells the story from both of their points of view, it just makes it even more suspenseful.
You're getting these glimpses of what happened, but you don't have the whole picture. and you just have to keep reading to find out.
It's like a puzzle, isn't it?
Yeah.
Each chapter is a new piece, but you don't see the full picture until the very end. And even then, you're still thinking about it, trying to figure out why people do the things they do.
And that's what makes it such a great book, right? You think about it long after you've finished it. It makes you think about your own life, your own relationships, the decisions that you would make.
It's a book that stays with you.
So what about Walsh's writing?
Yeah.
What makes her such a good storyteller?
I think it's how she balances that suspense with understanding, human emotions. Her characters feel real, they're flawed, and you can relate to them. And she writes in a way that's beautiful, but also really easy to read.
I know. She can describe something so simple like a walk on the beach and make it so emotional.
Yes.
You feel that connection, the longing. It's amazing how she does that with words.
And she's not afraid to show the darker parts of, being human.
Yeah.
She shows the pain and how hard it is to forgive, how complicated relationships can be.
But there's always that hope there.
Always.
That belief that you can be redeemed, that you can come back from anything. That's what makes the love of my life so powerful.
Yeah.
Even when things are really bad, there's always a little bit of light somewhere.
And sometimes that hope, it comes from places you don't expect. It might be a stranger being kind, or taking some time to really think, or even just realizing that you're stronger than you thought you were.
The love of my life reminds you that even when things go wrong, you still get to decide how you react, how you move forward.
You always have a choice.
One of the things that I found really interesting about this book was that it made me question my own ideas about right and wrong.
Oh, yeah.
It's so easy to, judge Emma for her lies, to say that she's a bad person.
Right.
But then as you read, you start to understand her. You see her fears, why she did what she did.
Exactly. It challenges you to, look beyond those easy labels and think about why people act the way they do.
Yeah.
What would you do in that situation? Would you make the same choices?
And it's not just about Emma.
No.
Leo does things that are kind of ethically questionable, too, especially when he's trying to find out the truth. He's motivated by love, yeah, but he also crosses some lines, like he invades Emma's privacy and could be hurting her health.
It really makes you think about loyalty and trust, doesn't it? Is it ever okay to go behind someone's back, even if you love them? And what does that do to your relationship?
It's something so many couples deal with. How much can you know about your partner? How do you want to be open with each other, but also respect each other's boundaries?
And in this book, it's even more complicated because Emma's past is so messed up.
Right.
She's not just hiding something embarrassing, she's trying to protect herself.
Which brings us back to whether we can ever really escape our past. Does it always shape who we are? And that's something that Walsh explores in so many ways throughout the book.
It's a really powerful theme.
And I think it's something that we're all grappling with, especially today. We're constantly bombarded with information, with all these different versions of the truth.
Exactly, yeah.
And so the love of my life is reminding us that truth can be really hard to find. Memories can be so unreliable, and the stories we tell ourselves, they can be good and bad.
They really can.
We talked about the ethical stuff, but I want to go back to Leo's job for a second.
Okay.
It's such a unique detail, right? An obituary writer.
It really is. And it's not just a quirky thing.
Right.
It adds to all those ideas about truth and memory and the stories that we tell.
It's like Leo spends all day trying to understand these strangers, trying to capture who they were.
Right.
But the woman he loves, he doesn't know her at all.
It's brilliant.
It really shows the main conflict in the book.
Yeah.
The stories we tell ourselves versus, what's really true. And it makes you think about identity. Like how much of who we are comes from our past, from what other people say about us.
And can we choose who we are? Can we create our own story?
And can you ever really know another person? Even someone you love? I mean, we all have secrets, right? Parts of ourselves that maybe we don't even know.
That's true.
It reminds us that there's always something new to learn about each other. And sometimes the most important journey is figuring out who you are.
Your own, internal journey.
Okay, we've talked about a lot of serious stuff, but I gotta say, there are some funny parts in the love of my life.
Oh, for sure.
Even when things are really tense, Walsh can make you laugh.
Yeah.
It's like a breath of fresh air, It reminds you that these characters, they're real people. That even when things are tough, there's still joy and laughter.
It's so important, that balance.
It makes the story so much more, real.
Real and relatable.
Life is full of ups and downs, right? And even when it feels like everything's going wrong, there's always something good waiting to be found.
Yeah.
And I think ultimately that's what Walsh is saying, you know? There's always hope, even when things are really hard.
Yeah.
Even after betrayal, you can heal, you can forgive, and love can survive. And it's not just romantic love.
Yeah.
It's the love between parents and kids, siblings, friends, all those connections that give us strength when life gets crazy.
Yeah. The love of my life, it's about how strong human connection can be. It shows how complicated relationships are, and that even in darkness, there's always hope.
So, as we're wrapping up our deep dive into the love of my life,
Mm.
what are your final thoughts? What did you take away from this book?
That's a good question. I think for me, it's about accepting your story, all of it, the good and the bad.
Mm-hmm.
It's about accepting your past, owning your mistakes, and realizing that those experiences, even when they hurt, they made you who you are. And it's about being brave enough to be vulnerable, to share those stories with people you trust,
That's a great takeaway.
to let yourself be seen, even the parts you don't love.
And that's something we can all relate to, right? We all have stories that have shaped who we are, how we see the world. And sometimes the best thing you can do is share those stories, connect with other people, and realize that you're not alone.
And that's what the love of my life really pushes us to do, right?
Yeah.
To just accept the messiness, how complicated our relationships are, and to believe that you can find good things even when things are really hard.
It does. And it reminds you that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is just listen. Be there for someone and try to understand their story, even when it's really tough to hear.
Yeah, and to remember that everyone's going through something. We never know the whole story. And sometimes the best thing we can do is just be there. Just listen and let people know that they're not alone.
Now, I know we've talked about some of the criticisms of The Love of My Life, but I want to say that I know this book won't be for everyone.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Some people, they might not be able to forgive Emma, or they might think Leo was wrong to pry into her life.
Hmm.
And that's okay, right? Not every book is going to be for every reader. And sometimes the books that really make us think, the ones that make us question things, those are the ones that stick with us the longest.
Totally. And it's those different perspectives, those different opinions that make reading so interesting, don't they?
Right.
Books are supposed to make you think, to challenge what you believe and help you understand yourself and the world better.
It's not about being right or wrong. It's about thinking about the story, connecting it to your own life, and coming to your own conclusions.
Exactly.
And The Love of My Life definitely gives you a lot to think about. It gets you talking about love and trust, forgiveness, who you are, and even how we tell stories.
Yeah.
And those conversations can be really powerful, for ourselves and for society.
Okay, I have one last question for you.
Okay.
If you could recommend The Love of My Life to one person, who would it be and why?
Who would I give this book to? I think anyone who's ever wondered about what's true, about how complicated relationships can be, or about second chances. It's a book that will stay with you. It makes you think about your own life, your choices, and everything that makes you, well, you.
That's a great way to put it. So for all of you listening, if you're looking for a book that will challenge you, make you feel things, and stay with you, I highly recommend The Love of My Life by Rosie Walsh.
It's an amazing journey.
Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive. We'll see you next time. Keep exploring and keep asking questions and keep looking for those stories that help us understand what it means to be human.